Hello, my name is Connor Quinlan. In this review, I'm going to be talking about what is inside my camera bag, which I have here. Now, I have done a review like this before and a video like this before, but that was with older equipment, and equipment that I would consider as more something I bought because I couldn't really afford what I really wanted. Well, in this review, I'm going to be talking about the equipment that I have, and now this equipment that I have is what I truly wanted and what is truly the best for me. So I'm going to redo this, what is in my camera bag, to give you an idea of what I consider the best equipment for landscape and wildlife photography. Now, first of all, I want to explain how I like to take pictures. You'll notice that this camera bag is considerably small. This is actually the Crumpler $6 Million Home, and it actually doesn't hold that much, and it is a shoulder bag. Most people would think, especially for a more professional photographer, to have a large backpack filled with lenses and camera bodies. Well, I'm the complete opposite when it comes to that. I don't like carrying around a ton of equipment, a lot of heavy equipment, and I don't like owning a ton of it because I like to use the equipment that I have and get my money's worth out of them. Point is that I like to carry around everything that I own with me. I don't like having to pick certain lenses or certain camera bodies to use. I like having all the equipment that I need with me at all times so that I'm always ready for a picture. For example, especially with my wildlife photography and it comes to that, I really like having this shoulder bag because it allows me to get in and get the camera out really quickly and take the picture. I can guarantee that most of my pictures of wildlife have been a success because my camera has been so easily accessible through this bag. So lightweight and easy access is very important to me. So now I'm going to go over what is inside this camera bag. First thing I have is my main setup, and actually I do not have very much in here. I've got one camera body and two lenses and a teleconverter. My main setup here is the Nikon D3X, which I actually got pretty recently. This is the dream camera that I've always wanted. Well, of course you could say this is the dream camera that most people always wanted, but I'm really telling this truthfully when I say that I really did need this camera because I like the lightweight and stuff. Either I could have had two camera bodies, one for wildlife, one for landscape photography, or I could have gotten this camera, which I finally did. I like only having one body, and with this camera I can take pictures of both landscapes with very high megapixel quality and wildlife, because this way I can crop down without having to worry about losing too many megapixels. And that way I also don't have to carry around super zoom telephoto lenses that you would have to use with a camera like, say, the Nikon D3. This way I can just crop down on the sensor to get closer to the wildlife instead of having to pay thousands of dollars to get a super zoom and lug around a huge many pound giant lens. So that is my reason for having the Nikon D3. And on it, the lens on it is the Nikon 14 to 24 millimeter lens. This is the absolute best lens in the world, in my opinion. For some people that's a different story, but I absolutely love ultra wide angle photography, especially when it comes to landscape. I find that that's more in tune with my style, is that I like to use the 14 millimeter end about 90% of the time when I'm using this lens, and that's how I get some of my more unique shots that you can see on my website. And another thing that I just love about this lens is simply how sharp it is. There's no other lens really from any other company, Canon, Sony, Sigma, anything at all, that can compete with the sharpness and quality of this lens. Even wide open, this lens can give you images that are tack sharp. The other lens that I use, and this is my wildlife lens of course, is the Nikon 70 to 200 millimeter VR lens. And I must say that I do love this lens, and I use this lens easily just as much as the 14 to 24 millimeter lens. It is the only lens I have for wildlife, so it's the only lens I ever use for that type of thing. And once again, I like that because that way I don't feel like I'm underusing any equipment. If I were to get a super telephoto lens, I probably wouldn't end up using this lens as much as I'd like to, and then it'd be kind of a waste. So I like the feeling of being able to use this lens for everything I take pictures of when it comes to wildlife. And then finally, with this lens, I also have the 1.7 time teleconverter, which of course is very useful, especially for birds and smaller mammals that are far away. It allows me to get really up close to those animals. And that is pretty much my entire setup. That's what I really use about 95% of the time when I'm taking pictures, is only that equipment. Now you'll notice that I have actually a huge gap, 24 to 70 millimeter. That's a very large gap to fill, and actually I have had a couple problems with that where I wish I did have something filling that gap. It doesn't happen very often, but it has happened, and I do plan on filling that gap with a couple of prime lenses, maybe a Nikon 35mm or Nikon 50mm lens as well. I might even go all in and get the Nikon 24 to 70, but to me, I'd rather just have the prime lenses because I never really use that center focal length all that much anyway. The only really useful focal length that I've needed, other than the ones that I have, is 35mm for landscapes. Now I'm just going to go over a couple of the other things that I have in my camera bag here. Up in the front, usually I keep memory cards, I keep the attachment for my tripod, and the attachment for this telephoto lens in there that I already have out. I keep spare film in there. Here I have some black and white film that I've already used, and I keep that in this front pouch. Anything like that. Up here in this top one here is where I keep all my memory cards. Pretty nice bag. Definitely the bag I would recommend most for any shoulder bag. Either this or a think tank bag is best for shoulder use. It's very comfortable, and easily, what I really like about it the most is that it easily fits the professional digital SLR. I used to have a Tamrac Velocity Pack, and the problem with that is that it wouldn't fit this large camera, and it just wasn't wide enough. So I had to upgrade to this guy, and it fits very nicely indeed. Now I'm going to talk about some of the other cameras I use. I do actually use film as well. I use digital about 95% of the time, like I said, but I do occasionally use film. And this is actually my favorite film camera that I have. It's a medium format 6x6 Agfa camera. This is actually a pretty old camera from like the 1950s, 1960s with a single focal range of 85mm. Now this camera is a lot of fun to use, and believe it or not, an old camera produces very nice results. This is especially fun to use on people and in the streets and stuff like that with black and white film. That's actually what I used that black and white film in this camera earlier. So it produces very, very nice pictures, and the best part, very portable, much smaller than my digital camera gear, of course, and believe it or not, you can get pictures that are actually better quality with this film because it is a medium format camera. The only problem with getting a camera like this is that you have to be careful, because most of the time you'll get a rip-off camera that's been used a lot or doesn't work. It took me a while to find one that was in this prime condition. You always want to find an Agfa camera that is completely refurbished and completely redone, because if it's in its original condition, trust me, it's not going to work. Finally, the last camera that I have is the giant medium format camera Mamiya RB67. Now this thing is a tank and a monster. I use this maybe 1% of the time that I'm taking pictures. This is the camera that I'll use if I'm on the rim of, say, Grand Canyon or Bryce Canyon and there's a superb sunset going on. I don't carry this around hiking with me or anywhere else. If it's right there, if the landscape is right there and accessible, I'll bring it, but other than that, I won't use this camera, and I'll just use my Nikon D3X, which now has plenty of megapixels to pretty much easily compete with this film anyway, although this still does produce better quality. If you get the film in here drum scanned, you can get images that are 50 megapixels. Now this is a medium format camera, just like the other camera there. The only difference is that, of course, it's a lot larger, and it produces much sharper images for landscape photography. And of course, this thing is a lot of fun to use as well, and the film can produce very good images. However, like I said, I don't use it very much anymore, especially now that I have a higher end, high megapixel digital SLR here, but definitely a fun thing to use. The reason I don't use film as much either is because I actually prefer the colors and the tones that I get with my digital SLR, and I can't really seem to match that as well with the film. Finally, the last piece of equipment that I use a lot is this Gitsu tripod that I have here. And when it comes to landscape photography, the tripod is ever so important. It's important that it's lightweight because this is a carbon fiber tripod, and it's important that it's easy to take apart and set up. The thing that I like about Gitzo is that no matter what kind of weather conditions, rain, dust, dirt, mud, whatever it is, these are always smooth and very easy to tighten, easy to come apart. And once all the legs are out, it's very easy to set up. Another quality that I like about this Gitzo is that it also doesn't have that many legs. It only has 2 that you have to come apart here. A lot of other ones, like the more expensive Gitzos or Manfrottos, have like 3 or 4, which is kind of a pain and can take forever to set up. I prefer having a tripod that's a little bit longer, but has a lot less extensions. This particular model is discontinued. It's a Gitzo GT1530 with a Manfrotto R88 RC2 head, but you can find Gitzo tripods similar to this particular model. This is actually the cheapest carbon fiber model that they had, and in my opinion, it's also the best. Alright, and that's pretty much all the equipment that I ever use out in the field. And really quickly, I'm actually just going to take the camera off. We're going to take a look at all of this spread out. And the reason I'm doing this is so that you can get an idea of how truly little equipment this is. Here's my main setup that I use 95% of the time. Just one camera body and 2 lenses. And of course, like I said, I'm probably going to add either 2 prime lenses for the center or the 24 to 70 millimeter lens. And you can see just how little equipment that is, and that's what I carry around with me most of the time. It's very easy to carry around, very light, especially when in this bag, and I can take pretty much any picture I want with that setup. And then of course, I've got these 2 medium format cameras, one for serious landscape shooting, and one just basically for fun, kind of street film shooting with black and white film. And then finally, I have my tripod, which supports all of these things. And this has been a look inside my camera bag.